why am I feeling like I have to justify this? We have we owe no one anything when it comes to these things. Like these are just tools to have a great time, to do work. Um, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So this is really much more sharing an experience that you may be going through, looking for inspiration, trying to figure out like how do I go take my images next level, my video work next level. It's basically intention, being more purposeful. And once you have the knowledge of the tools and how to use them, you can use any system, any lens, and you will produce great results.
This is the Macro Marvin channel, where he'll share his passion for photography, videography, watches, cats, cars, and much more. Enjoy and thank you for watching.
Welcome back, my subscribers. I literally had to stop recording as I was recording this video, because the whole conversation about switching systems and justifying it just felt really, really dumb, to be honest. So I'm gonna leave the thoughts I was sharing after this clip, but I want to get to the gist of it. The point is not to feel like I have to justify switching systems, or if you're switching systems to have to prove anything to anybody. I think it really does come down to preference and user experience. I know a lot of times we've been hearing people talk about user experience with cameras for inspiration, for photography, and it looks like this thing's a helicopter hat on my head. That's just great framing. I hope you enjoy that. I'll just stay right there. I'm gonna line up with it so I can complete the look. User experience does matter. I think at the end of the day, when you're new to photography or you're looking to get the job done, there are cameras that make your job easier. Sony is definitely one of those. I'm recording on one right now. Like, it's so reliable. It's not even a question if I'm in focus or not. It's not a question if my image is going to come out good enough for YouTube or for any job, any video project that I have. But when you take a step further, what is a user experience? Sometimes you might want to venture out of what you've always used. And that's what it's been for me. I've used Sony for so long. I think I just needed to venture out a little bit. And that's why I had my journey through the GFX system, through Fuji X. Nikon, I did a little bit, not in depth. And this kind of naturally took me to the Leica world, back to the Q2, exploring the SL system that I had only seen in pictures, never seen in a store, had never really tried out, and just learning from the GFX experience. If you haven't seen that video, my mistake using the GFX system was that I was using it as a secondary system when that is basically a primary system. So if you don't go all in on GFX in terms of using the autofocus lenses and just making that ecosystem your primary tool, you will kind of be disappointed, like I was, in realizing how much money you've locked up on a secondary camera, even though the image quality is amazing, even though the video is amazing. If you don't have the lenses to take advantage of the full system and just create that, like I said, that ecosystem to use that tool at its maximum capacity, you'll be disappointed. So I've done a different approach with the SL. I've gone all in. I literally sold my A7S III, my A7R5, and a bunch of lenses. I've only kept the A7C II because I feel like it keeps the best of both worlds for video and photo. It's compact. I can get a lot of lenses that are very affordable for it and still keep the size factor reasonable. Very similar to the A6700, which is why I got that one. I basically have the full frame and APS-C equivalents using a very similar body, and I really like that. And I've come to appreciate Sony for both photo and video, but I think I am using it more and more for video. So as I shift my focus, I've gone all in on the SL2, SL2S. Even though it's contrast based, even though it may not be as fast in a lot of areas, it feels right. And using Sigma lenses, using Leica lenses, using manual focus lenses, but using it as a full ecosystem, as my primary photo system, it's working. And I think that's what you got to do if you are thinking about venturing off or trying to look for more inspiration. I'm not saying it's the same path for everybody, but in my case, after years of Sony use and perfection of autofocus, I wanted a little bit of a challenge, and I think I found it, and I'm finding a lot more intentionality in my images, in my video work when I've used the SL system. And now I even have the Lumix S9 just to keep things even more compact. Um, I think the newness and the learning is forcing me to, at this stage in photography and videography, take a step back, be more intentional, get better images, shoot fewer images because you're being more purposeful. I'm finding that every time I go out and shoot, I'm now shooting maybe 50% less, sometimes even more. And a lot of them are keepers. So I think I'm still, I mean, we're all going through the learning process. This is just a different stage that I'm at, and maybe you're finding yourself at. Um, but if you take away anything from the videos I'm making right now or this topic, it's that you should be intentional and purposeful. Um, Something about approaching the Leicas has made me approach photography again with a new perspective, kind of like a sacred perspective of like, this is the tool. It's well made. It's beautiful. Um, I'm pretending I have limited shots. I'm going to get the maximum, the best out of the camera that I can get with this tool. I think it's that reverence that you can find within many different art forms that will help you improve your quality and also your appreciation for what you're producing. So I feel a lot better with the new images I've been releasing, using my new tools. But then again, this is just a journey. These are just tools. You just got to find what works for you. And I went into the SL system at a point where it's no longer as new, prices have dropped, and it's much more accessible. So I'm also not going into it just splurging everywhere, you know? It's been a process to get rid of things and acquire things. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm still gonna leave in my thoughts that I was just like going on. I was just loose thinking about everything in my drive. So if that's useful, I hope it is. Maybe some pieces are useful. I'll leave them in right after this, but this is a day after starting that recording, kind of trying to bring it all in because I felt like I felt a little scattered at some point, and then I was like, why am I feeling like I have to justify this? We have we owe no one anything when it comes to these things. Like these are just tools to have a great time, to do work. Um, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So this is really much more sharing an experience that you may be going through, looking for inspiration, trying to figure out like how do I go take my images next level, my video work next level. It's basically intention, being more purposeful. And once you have the knowledge of the tools and how to use them, you can use any system, any lens, and you will produce great results. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Take a listen to my rambling on my drive. Thanks. Right. Welcome back, my subscribers. In this video, I'm going to share my experience and reasoning about why I have shifted away from Sony for photography purposes and a lot of video, although I'm using Sony right now, but mostly photo. Why have I moved away from Sony to Leica cameras / Lumix, L-mount Alliance? I know it sounds ridiculous because, well, maybe not for all of you, but I've used Sony for a long time. I know and trust the cameras. They're very reliable. The autofocus is second to none. I know Canon and Nikon now have competitive cameras that can compete. Like they punch their weight above out there in terms of autofocus. So nothing to say negative about those cameras, but as a Sony user, I chose Sony and I stuck with Sony because I had invested in it. And it hasn't let me down. I've shot numerous weddings, portrait shoots, videos on YouTube. All have mostly been shot with Sony and Sony glass. The glass options are great. The third-party options are great. Right now, I'm using the A6700 with a 12mm Samyang Rokinon with the DJI Mic Mini, and it's the most compact thing ever. And I know it works. Like, I have no doubts that these cameras are reliable. So why have I even thought about shifting if everything's great? If things are not broken, why am I trying to fix something? So that's what I want to talk about today. And this is more of a reflection. And again, I want to be real. This is my camera journey. I'm not sharing anything to brag. I think I just want to reflect. And I know many of you out there might be thinking about, or have been tempted about, switching systems because there's been so much new stuff coming out. And there's been a lot of progress in all camera brands. It really comes down to, what do you prefer? What are the lenses you prefer? What system do you want to get to know and invest in? There's nothing wrong with using multiple systems. That's the other thing. A lot of people use multiple systems. I've used Sony, Fuji. I've had Canon, Nikon, GFX, Lumix. I've tried to use them all because I want to know, like, am I comfortable with what I'm using, or should I bring in a tool that's going to make my life easier? This isn't about the megapixels. This isn't about so much menu systems. In some part, it is about lenses. But in most part, the most important thing that I have realized after shooting for so long, after many weddings and portrait shoots, and just experiencing the passion of photography and videography, I want tools that inspire me. And I think that's one of the reasons that got me into Leica. When I first got the Q2, this compact little camera, wide angle lens, it was something completely out of the ordinary for me. It's not the combination I would have picked, but I wanted to try it out and stick to it to see if people were right. And initially, I kept it for a year. I used it as much as I could. I took it out everywhere. It was easy to take out because it was accessible. It was small enough, at least. That's one of the major things, too. If you are discouraged from taking out your camera system, you're not going to use it. So I wanted also something that I'm going to be inspired and encouraged to pick up and take with me. And this Q2 was doing it for me. But then I think I did not fully understand or appreciate what it was offering. I started to get complaints about the autofocus. And it's hard because when you come from Sony, you're spoiled, you got everything. Even from Canon now, you have everything you need to take the image you want. So it really does come down to your preference and what is going to make you happy when you're taking the shots. So this is not a video at all to convince you to switch or anything. This is just my experience and where my journey has been taking me. I got to dabble in Leica through that camera, through the TL2, which I got rid of very quickly. It was not a camera for me. I'll post that video up here if you want to see that. I did see that the raw files were good. They have a great starting point. They were more neutral. I could get where I wanted to go just as I can get there with the Sonys, so that wasn't an issue. Autofocus was, hit or miss because it's contrast based. But I hadn't fully used contrast based systems with more experience. So anyway, I got rid of the Q2. I've been on the journey ever since I got the Q2. It's been worse for me trying to replace that. So I have the A7C2, the A6700. I've used the Fuji's X Pro, the X-T5, trying to fill that gap, that feeling that I was getting of being inspired to pick up the camera and use it. And time again, it kept making me question if I had made the right decision because I had so many images shot with the Q2, unlike other cameras that I have. I was just taking it out more and using it more, even though the others were just as compact or even more compact. So that made me question it. That's where it started. And then we see them, Leica, come out with new options and other prices drop. And that definitely was a reason to tempt me to try out the SL system, which I know I was interested in for a couple of years, but also had seen prices just ridiculous for getting something like that. In general, Leica prices are ridiculous. But for some reason, the SL2 and SL2S have dropped dramatically. And right now, they're at a price that, even though, and I'm putting it into perspective, they are older cameras. They were not released last year or 2 years ago. These are 5+ year old cameras. What I think makes this different, though, and I appreciate, is that Leica has chosen to continually upgrade the firmware. They don't release cameras every year, focuses on the lens quality and output. So that, above all, is something that I really value in their practice, in their business, which means I could basically try out an SL2, SL2S. I could get my money back because they don't lose their value much, and I could try it out. And that was one of the things that got me into it, thinking I could just test it out, use it for a year or less, sell it if I don't like it. And the tradition in Leica is a lot of monofocus lenses, so I already had a lot of those. So that was an easy switch right there to just try that system out. The ergonomics are amazing. The feel is amazing. You could tell that the camera was made to not be replaced every other year, which is a very big deal for me. The files are great. The lenses are great. There are great lenses in a lot of brands, but there's a certain look that a lot of people reference in Leica lenses, and even if it's not Leica lens, I mean like Voigtlander, like all these type of monofocus lenses that are using more traditional or old school styles of imaging versus the modern sharpness. I was kind of digging that more in my images. I didn't want them to look clinical. I wanted more character. I wanted more flares, but not too many flares. This system started to look a lot more appealing to me. And I get that I could put those same lenses on any Sony camera, on any Lumix camera, any Nikon ZF, but for some reason it just feels right to use that camera system. And I've been enjoying it since. And I've been using it for video, and I've been really corrected in my assumptions that the contrast autofocus system is trash. I've always avoided it because I know it's not as reliable as phase detection. It will never be as good as this camera right now. Well, they're trying to, but those cameras are nowhere near this level. But they're good enough for everyday photography and portraits. And I've put it to the test with even flying, like with pelicans, portraits, pets. You gotta work around certain limitations with all systems. This one's workable, I think, after using it for a while. So I'm really happy with it. To be continued.